Erzan Armakiir lived in the most wealthy city of all, Lisdor. A wealthy noble, he attended all the fine parties and events, and he was often seen in the great courts of Lisdor. However, Erzon was not any noble. He was from the Armakirr clan, well-known Bloodhunters, and a past he soon shed as it hindered his nobility, or did it? Perhaps Erzon was invited to the best courts of the land because of his last name. Regardless, Erzon wished to be known for making his own way, and that his family, for better or worse, was not the deciding factor of his fate. Erzon had a brother, almost a twin. His name was Ervan, and unlike his brother, remained at the Armakirr Manor in the foothills of Lisdor. Ervan wore the family name with pride. The Armakirr family was well-known bloodhunters. Some would call them mercenaries, but not within earshot of any of the Armakirr family members. The Armakirr family for generations were called upon to hunt down the dark forces that would trouble the nobles, the great houses throughout Lisdor. Ghouls, goblins, orcs, and all manner of beasts had become staple trophies of the family. On the Armakirr estate was a hunting lodge where the family would train, and a few mounted trophies decorated the great hall. As much as the Armakirr family was respected, it was also shunned, for they were only invited to the great courts when trouble was at hand. Never invited to the galas or royal events of the day, and while it did not bother Ervan or his father, his brother Erzon felt it a rebuke towards the family, and he had left at maturity to seek out his own fortune. It was like any other morning in the great seaport of Lisdor. Erzon took his breakfast on the veranda overlooking the city and was served a breakfast of the finest fruits and breads. A morning white port with some fine cheese finished the affair. On this morning, his servant brought a letter to him. Straight away, Erzon recognized the wax seal. It was the Armakirr family seal. He broke the seal and read quickly, for it was rare that his family would send a letter unless it was urgent. Dear brother, I hope this letter finds you well, and I bid your forgiveness for any intrusion. Yet I would be remiss if I did not contact you about father. It is urgent you come, as time is pressing. Signed, your brother Ervan. Erzon had not seen his brother in 4 years when he had come to the grand city to spend a few days with his brother. Erzon paraded him through the great halls and parlors of this amazing city, yet he could see his brother was merely attending as a courtesy. For Ervan was far more at home hunting beasts and traveling to far-off adventures rather than parading around like a dandy, a term Ervan would use to tease his brother. Erzon had not seen his father in over a decade when he had visited the Armakirr Manor for the farthing, a reunion held every 10 years for the Armakirr family and relatives. Erzon felt embarrassed, and some of his more distant relatives were, shall we say, living a far simpler life. He did all he could to control his frustration and was ashamed of how he felt. For family blood of the Armakirr is thick, and an Armakirr will not hesitate to lay down their life or limb for a fellow family member. Erzon was frustrated, for the Armakirr family was extremely wealthy, but they decided not to live a life of nobility. They were servants of nobility, or so Erzon thought. He ordered his servant to pack his things, and he would leave straight away for the Armakirr Manor. It's a few days' ride. When Erzon arrived at the manor, as if he knew the hour of his arrival, his brother was waiting at the main gate and joined him silently. They did not hug or speak. It was a time of quiet reflection as they rode side by side to the main house. Their father had taught them to take care in their speech, to think deeply before uttering a word. Clearly, the silent short ride from the gatehouse was a sign of respect and remembrance of their father. Ervan dismounted his horse and without making eye contact said only, "The rising," as he began to walk into the large manor with his brother in tow. The great secret of the Armakirr family, not known but to the closest of the inner circle of the clan, was the Armakirr family suffered the curse of lycanthropy. It ran in their blood, and no one knew when it may come. Sometimes it would skip a generation or family member, but when it came, it changed everything. The family called the first signs of the change the rising. For the rising of the new moon is when the curse began to run its course, and the first changes would begin. It came on like a fever. It took every manner of will to suppress it, and eventually one would succumb and be forced to leave the family and live a life of destitute deep in the forest or mountains and away from civilization. One of the great secret horror stories of the family was an ancestor that went through the rising and would not leave when they could no longer control the effects. Eventually, the Armakirr hunted down their own kin and killed them to stop them from ravaging a village nearby. The rising had not happened in their family in a generation, and it was hoped that perhaps it had run its course. In the great study, Ervan began a fire and gestured for his brother to sit. Ervan began to explain that a year ago father had succumbed to the rising. At first, he was able to control it, but in a few short months, he knew he had to go. His father had some writings that told of an old, ancient order of the Lycan, an ancient order that learned how to control the rising in a ceremony called the taming. If the myths were to believe, this was his father's only hope. In the last few months before his departure, their father spent day and night in the study, reading over ancient texts and scrolls. He packed his gear and rode off in search for the order in hopes that the taming would work and control the beast within. Erzon did not need to ask why his father had not reached out to him. The Armakirr family is proud and take care of themselves. Unless his father felt that Erzon could be of help, he would not trouble him. His brother continued. He had received a message from one of the Verstani gypsies that father was at the Bare Bow Inn near the village of Wormwood and sent word that he had discovered the location of the ancient order. Father would send word in a few months' time once he found the order and hoped to bear good news. But that was over 6 months ago, and no word had come. It was then he must felt that he must leave the estate in search of his father, but he would not do so before informing his brother. He did not wish to inform his brother by letter, in case the letter fell into the wrong hands, and the secret of the Armakirr family became known. Thus, a meeting needed to be had in person and immediately. Erzan sat quietly, absorbing each and every word that his brother had to tell him. He had many questions, but no answers would deliver his father's whereabouts. Erzan spoke for the first time. He would come with his brother. After all, he was Armakirr, and it was his duty. His brother nodded and turned towards a large chest and pulled from it his brother's old Bloodhunter leathers and weapons. Erzon could not help but smile. His brother knew him far too well. They packed their affairs and shared a large dinner before leaving by morning light. That night, they both shared a dream of an elderly lady. She whispered over and over, "The taming! The taming!" The next morning, they each woke with a card on their chest. The diviner. In the morning at breakfast, Erzon laid the card on the table. His brother looked at him, raising an eyebrow, laid the exact same card next to his. A calling, as it was known by the Armakirr family, was something all too real. A diviner would reach out across the ether. While neither of the brothers had ever experienced it, they heard the myths and the rumors from the Vistani. They packed their gear, they mounted their horses, and made quick pace for the village of Wormwood. It was a 2-day hard ride, and just outside the village, over a stone bridge, was a small inn covered in ivy among the trees, with a sign that read, Bare Bow Inn. Welcome to the Legends of Barovia. Your quest begins.